You want to see your child again, don't you? Then you should do what I advise. The fake HOA cop told my guest that he didn't know and he couldn't know that the woman in front of him who was shaking wasn't a weak mother. She was a detective who had been working on a case against men just like him. And by the end of the night, he would have lost his badge, pistol, and the life he knew. Before we get started, please tell us what country you're in. Let's see how far this story goes. It all started like any ordinary afternoon at Maple Crest Estates, that picture-perfect suburban cocoon where even the grass looked uneasy when the HOA was watching. Juliya Vance, a family friend from the city, came over that day to drop off some paperwork for my wife after work. She had parked her blue car on the side of the road outside the park. There was nothing wrong or out of the ordinary, but it was enough to set him off. Officer Hayes, the self-proclaimed HOA cop. He wasn't a real police officer at all. After a few break-ins, the HOA hired him to patrol the neighborhood. They didn't know they had given a bully a costume and pretext to act like God. Julia told me later how it all began. He walked up to her automobile with his hand on a holstered gun that appeared fake until it wasn't. "License and registration," he yelled before she could even roll down her window. "Is there a problem?" she said in a nice way. He snapped. "The problem is that you're in a restricted area, and you guys think the rules don't apply to you." Julia blinked. He smirked. "At you people, yes. It doesn't matter if you say outsiders or visitors." It was evident what he was saying. He said she looked suspicious, said she was hanging out near private property, and then told her to get out of the car. Julia did what she was told. Calm, cool, and professional. Hayes, on the other hand, didn't want conformity. He wanted to be in charge. He looked through her car without her permission, acting like he was looking for drugs and mumbling insults under his breath. Then, while she stared in shock, he put a small bag of white powder in the rear seat, exactly beneath the armrest. He said with a chuckle, "Found it. Looks like possession with intent." Julia stopped moving. "That's not mine." "Of course it isn't," he remarked as he got closer. "Okay, here's how this works. If you don't do what I say, I'll call someone and your young son will grow up without a mother." Her heart raced, and his voice became quiet and ill. "Take off that shirt." Julia looked at him with wide eyes and a pounding heart. "What did you just say?" He smiled, the kind of smile that makes your blood run cold. "I've never been with a woman like you before, so you'll do what I say, or you'll spend the night in a cell." Julia's body got stiff. She was scared. But there was something else underneath the terror. Counting. Hayes didn't know that the whole affair was being recorded by the concealed camera she had turned on when he started bothering her. She looked him in the eye and said, "I think you just made the biggest mistake of your life." And she was right, because within 24 hours, the world of that false HOA cop will be coming crumbling down in front of every badge in the precinct. Hayes pulled Julia out of the car with too much force. The pain was so bad that it took her breath away as her shoulder impacted the door frame. Yet she didn't fight back. Not yet. She knew how to get through times like this. Let the person who is attacking you think they are in charge. He said, "Face the car," pulling her to the hood with her hands behind her back. Julia did what she was told. Calm, cool, and professional. Hayes, on the other hand, didn't want conformity. He wanted to be in charge. He looked to her car without her permission, acting like he was looking for drugs and mumbling insults under his breath. Then, while she stared in shock, he put a small bag of white powder in the rear seat, exactly beneath the armrest. He said with a chuckle, "Found it? Looked like possession with intent." Julia stopped moving. "That's not mine." "Of course it isn't," he remarked as he got closer. "Okay, here's how this works. If you don't do what I say, I'll call someone and your young son will grow up without a mother." Her heart raised and his voice became quiet and ill. "Take off that shirt first."
Julia looked at him with wide eyes and a pounding heart. "What did you say?" He smiled, the kind of smile that makes your blood run cold. "I've never been with a woman like you before, so you'll do what I say, or you'll spend the night in a cell." Julia's body got stiff. She was scared, but there was something else underneath the terror. Counting! Hayes didn't know that the whole affair was being recorded by the concealed camera she had turned on when he started bothering her. She looked him in the eye and said, "I think you just made the biggest mistake of your life." And she was right, because within 24 hours, the world of that false HOA cop will become crumbling down in front of every badge in the precinct. Age pulled Julia out of the car with too much force. The pain was so bad that it took her breath away as her shoulder impacted the doorframe. Yet she didn't fight back. Not yet. She knew how to get through times like this. Let the person who is attacking you think they are in target. He said, pulling her to the hood with her hands behind her back. Julia did what she was told, her heart racing and her eye following the reflection in the windshield. She observed his smirk that showed that he was too sure of himself because he had done it before and thought he could do it again.
But he didn't realize that there was a little speaker fastened to the inside seam of her jacket, blinking red and sending every word to a secure server. He whispered, "Stay still," and pulled one of her wrists violently into place, his body pressing dangerously near to hers. Julia replied softly, "You're making a mistake." He snapped, "Shut up! You think you can talk back to the police?" She turned her head a little and spoke in a calm but piercing voice. "Hayes, you're not a police officer. You're a rent-a-cop with a lot of power." He paused for the first time. "How do you know my name?" She remarked, "I make it my business to know who abuses power." The words hit him harder than he thought they would. He pulled back, now agitated, and reached for his radio, but before he could click the button, another voice came across the air. A person who works for the genuine police channel. Julia's secret transmitter had live audio. "Unit 47, tell me where you are," the speaker said. Hayes stopped moving. "What?" Julia smiled a little, which informed him the game had just changed. "Hayes, they're listening. Every word, every lie." His eyes quickly looked at the road. 2 police cars were turning the corner. Their sirens were off, but their lights were blazing. Panic set in. He drew back from her, cursing under his breath, but it was too late. The first cruiser screeched to a halt behind his fake police car. 2 officers came out with their guns drawn. "Get away from the car," Hayes said, stuttering. "She's under arrest, this woman." "Why?" one of them yelled. He grabbed for the trunk and fumbled for the placed bag, but Julia got there first. She turned around, still holding the little bag between 2 fingers, and cuffed it. "Are you talking about this proof?" she asked. "That's what he just put in my car." The senior officer looked at Hayes and then at her. "Sir, please put your hands where we can see them." Hayes tried to talk his way out of it, but his voice was shaky. The officer searched him and found 2 more of the same baggies in the pocket of his jacket. Julia adjusted her sleeves and finally got her cuffs in order. "You're done, Hayes," she replied in a quiet voice. "And you don't even know how bad it is." Julia saw the understanding settle on his face as the officers read him his rights. He wasn't taking anyone in. He was the one who was arrested. If you like this HOA story so far, please like and subscribe because it will only get better. They dragged him in, kicking and screaming, and he was still trying to argue his way out of it. Hayes kept yelling about fake evidence in a setup, but the only thing that was getting set up was his booking photo. Everyone saw the irony. The fake HOA cop who thought he could wreck a woman's life was now in his own precinct, handcuffed, red-faced, and shaking. Captain Reynolds stood near the front desk with his arms crossed and a blank look on his face. The cops put Hayes on a chair. "Captain, I saw him make an illegal halt." One person said, "The victim says he planted drugs and made threats." "Victim?" Hayes made a face. "That woman's not a victim. She's lying.
I caught some random person breaching the law." "Funny," Reynolds replied in a low voice. "That random civilian asked for this meeting." Hayes blinked. "What meeting?" Reynolds didn't say anything. He only pointed to the corridor. Julia went into the captain's office. She was calm and collected, and she was no longer wearing jeans and a blouse. Instead, she was wearing a flawlessly fitted dark gray pantsuit. The silver chain that held her badge caught the fluorescent light like justice itself. The room was quiet. Hayes gazed, his face losing color. "What is this?" Reynolds' tone became harsh. "Detective Juliya Vance, meet Officer Hayes. 6th Precinct's Internal Affairs." Hayes's mouth fell open. "She's a detective?" Reynolds said to conclude, "And she's been looking into reports of wrongdoing in other counties. We've already flagged your name 3 times. I begged for some help then." Julia moved in closer, her voice steady. "We heard that you are misusing your power, making false accusations, and going after women alone. I wanted to find out for myself if the stories were true." Hayes yelled, "You set me up!" as he fought against the restraints. Juliet's eyes didn't move. "You put yourself in this situation."
"I gave you every chance to do your job right. You made all the choices that got you here." The captain looked at the officers who were observing. "Look at his patrol car. Any evidence that was planted comes back on his record." They went away and came back a few minutes later with a bag of the same drug packets that Hayes had tried to frame her with. It was done. Reynolds sighed. "Officer Hayes, you're being arrested for misbehavior, tampering with evidence, and abusing your power." The officers moved forward, but Reynolds told them to stop. "Detective Vance, would you like to take the lead?" Julia carefully walked up to him. He couldn't even see her. She took the cuffs off her belt and put them back on his wrists in one smooth motion. The click sounded like a gavel strike throughout the room. "You're off duty," she stated in a chilly voice. Hayes dropped his head in despair, the weight of his pride finally getting to him. Every officer he passed in the main corridor glanced at him as they escorted him out. There were whispers, then quiet, the kind of stillness that ends a job. Julia stopped at the door outside. She gazed up at the sun coming through the clouds, the same light that had halted her. It finally felt like closure now. Captain Reynolds came along. "You did a good job with that, Detective." She nodded once. Nobody should be able to use a badge to scare the people they promised to protect. He smiled a little. "Don't let me forget to never get on your bad side." She gave it back with a tiny, exhausted smile. "Please don't pull me over." As Hayes was put into a cruiser, they both giggled gently. His own ride, his own restraints, and his own death. In just a week, the bills piled up quickly. Tampering with evidence, false incarceration, misuse of power, and sexual harassment with the goal of forcing someone to do something. The DA was serious. The court found Hayes guilty of everything. He was given a 32-year prison sentence in a federal prison with no prospect of release for the first 16 years. He also lost his badge and pension, and he was put on the National Registry for Law Enforcement Misconduct, which means he can never work in security or the government again. What do you all think? Was that karma or planned justice? Please let me know in the comments what you would have done if someone tried to misuse their badge. Like way. That's it.